It should come as no surprise, but the eviction bans have squeezed the housing supply across the country. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I actually have two articles for you today, and they're not exactly on the same topic. The first topic I'm going to be going over today is about how the eviction moratoriums, the eviction bans all across the country actually really hurt the housing supply, and it really make it difficult for not just people who are looking to buy a property, but also people who are trying to rent to find a place that they can actually afford. Now, the second article I'm going to be going over is covering a new law in the state of Florida, which will require landlords to do background checks on employees. And I'm going to tell you exactly why they passed this law and why I agree with it, which is kind of rare since I almost never agree with new laws and rules and regulations that they put on landlords. But before I get into these two articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of a law that would require landlords to do background investigations on new employees. Do you think that would be a good idea or a bad idea? And tell me why in the comments, because, I have my opinions, but I want to know what your opinions are, okay? So, the first story I have for you today, it comes from rochesterfirst.com, and it says, eviction bans squeeze supply, bringing rents to boil, report finds. And let's see what it says. As it did for home prices, short supply has lit a fire under rents. A report from brokerage House Canary says eviction moratoriums are partially to blame for the price increases. Throughout 2020 and much of 2021, national and local eviction protections kept renters in their homes and made some landlords reluctant to list vacancies for fear a new tenant might move in and stop paying. And that is exactly what happened, okay? So there were a lot of landlords who decided, hey, we're just going to leave our units empty until these eviction moratoriums are done. And so in places like New York State, where the eviction moratorium is still going on until January, I'm sure that there are some landlords who are saying, I'm not putting anybody in here. Okay, so let's just keep the housing supply short. Now, what I have heard is that rents have skyrocketed and are up at levels of pre-pandemic levels up in New York. And I'm pretty sure that the eviction moratoriums and all that are part of the reason for it. The housing market's hot. Okay, and there's a lot of people who are looking for places to rent, and the affordable places are the ones that you won't be able to find. There's plenty of places if you've got very, very high income and you can afford to live in luxury, but there's not a lot of places if you're just average middle class person, or even worse if you're lower income and you're trying to find a decent place to live. So yeah, it's gotten hard out there. As protections have expired, the Supreme Court tossed President Joe Biden's ban in August. House Canary argues landlords are still hesitant to open new listings, thereby limiting the pool of available units and driving up prices. Cities in Louisiana and Florida have seen the sharpest drop in vacancies. Baton Rouge, for example, reported a 78% decrease in properties available for rent since the start of the pandemic. In Fort Myers, Florida, available units shrunk by over 50% in the same period, while median rents in the area doubled. And yeah, that's what's going to happen. That's the law of supply and demand, okay? As there are fewer properties available for rent, then prices are going to increase, okay? They're just going to go up because there's going to be more tenants looking for those fewer number of units, and those tenants are going to be willing to pay more. That's the way it works. This shouldn't be too surprising. I don't think the eviction moratorium is 100% to blame. I know that they already were not building enough affordable housing even before this pandemic began. And then with all the supply chain shortages and everything, it's only exacerbated the issue, okay? Driving those shifts is the lingering impact of pandemic exoduses. As remote workers sought out warmer locales, inventories withered and prices ballooned. Now, as return to office plans have pulled tenants back to urban living, coastal cities like New York are experiencing similar inventory shortages, inflamed by continued warehousing of apartments. In April, Urban Digs found landlords were keeping over 50% of New York's rental stock off the market, Yield Pro reported. Yeah, like I said, their eviction moratorium is still going on. So yeah, they're going to keep those properties off of the market until they know they can get tenants in there that are going to pay the rent and not just completely screw them over. But other factors that might be hurting them as well is, these good cause eviction laws, rent control. I mean, think about it. There has to be an incentive for a landlord to want to rent out a property. And if they're waiting for better conditions for them to make money, then they're going to just wait. They're going to wait it out. They're not afraid to take a short-term loss. And for them, it could be taking a loss for 2 to 3 years. If that means that 3 years down the line, all of a sudden they're able to make a huge profit. Another puppet master behind rising rents is the hot housing market. An incredibly tight market for homes has pushed would-be buyers into the rental market, further straining supply. House Canary does expect supply to normalize over the next few months, taking pressure off rents, but tenants shouldn't expect any near-term discounts. Yeah, and that's another issue that I keep forgetting. The people who can't find a house to buy because the housing market is tight for purchases, they are going to look for rentals, and they're going to be competing with the people who always rent. So that's going to make the housing market even tighter. It's really a good situation for landlords, though, because we might be able to make up some of the lost money that we have from the pandemic times. Okay, all those landlords who lost money, if you're able to charge higher rents now and get better quality of tenants, good. Okay, just do it. You have to do what you have to do to survive. So the next article I have for you today, and it's coming out of Florida, and it's an interesting law that they passed, and it has to do with kind of a bad situation that happened in an apartment building down there. And so they passed this law that requires background checks for apartment employees. So this article is coming from WSVN.com, and it says, Maya's Law. Florida lawmakers file bill requiring landlords to conduct background checks on apartment employees. And like I said, I do agree with this law, and this is pretty rare for me to agree with laws like this, but let's get into it. Florida lawmakers have introduced a new bill in honor of 19-year-old Maya Marcano, who was killed at her apartment complex in Orlando earlier this year. If passed, the bill, titled Maya's Law, would require landlords to conduct background checks for all apartment employees. The bill was introduced by State Representative Robin Bartleman from Weston. A Senate version of the bill has been introduced by State Senator Linda Stewart. The background check conducted must include a national screening of criminal history records and sexual predator and sexual offender registries. Interesting stuff right there. Okay, so like I said, I agree with this, okay? But I agree for coming from the perspective of, okay, you're a business owner and you have these employees out there working for you, and you want to make sure that they are good employees that represent your best interests. Then you need to be doing background investigations on them anyway. You need to run their backgrounds anyway as a stipulation of employment, in my opinion. Now, that is not to say that criminal convictions, for minor stuff would be a disqualifier. That's not to say that it, instantly would mean, oh, well, this person has been convicted, so I'm not going to hire them. No. What it does mean, though, is that you would be able to better screen your employees and make sure that you're not putting someone bad in there who would be a bad fit and bad for your business, okay? Now, this is kind of a bad situation where this apartment employee apparently, killed this young girl, okay? And I wouldn't want something like that to happen to me, but at the same time, do I want sex offenders working for me? No, I don't. Okay, I don't want that person to be associated with me, and then people, when they're thinking of this bad stuff, they're thinking of me, and I get the blame, and that's completely a good reason why landlords should be doing this. Okay, I do background investigations on every single tenant that I put into any of my properties. And I will find out if they are sex offenders. I will find out if they've been convicted of any crimes. I know their credit history. I know all their past residences, and I know more about my tenants. But you're telling me that you're going to have an employee, somebody who you work with every day, and you don't know about them? That just seems kind of lazy to me, okay? You should definitely do the same for anybody who's working for you that you do for your tenants. At least, you might even do more, do a further background investigation than you would on your tenants. Because you got to see these people and work with them. Marcano was found dead weeks after she was reported missing by her family. She is suspected to have been killed by 27-year-old Armando Caballero, who worked at the apartment complex where Marcano lived and also worked. Caballero was the only person of interest in the case, and he was found dead from suicide days after Marcano was reported missing. Investigators said Caballero used a master key to enter Marcano's apartment. Detectives said Caballero had shown a romantic interest in Marcano before, but she repeatedly turned him down. Man, this is a terrible tragedy, okay? And I know that background investigations might not have prevented something like this from happening, but they might have, okay? And even if something like this doesn't happen in the future, would you like to know, if nothing else, like say your employee has a theft conviction? Do you want somebody who steals working for you? Because they could be stealing from you next time, okay? So, yeah, bad situation, but I do agree with this Florida law, one of the very few landlord laws that I do agree with.